when we say we want to be committed to bringing Kenyans together, this is not a political agenda. This is a challenge.
The people of Kenya believe in what you and Raila Amolo Odinga are trying to do for the people of this country.
Tangu hii mtu ya kitendawili aingie kwa hii nyumba, rais umeanza kuwa na hasira kidogo kidogo, lakini tunakupenda tu namna hiyo.
We cannot understand how we are encouraging handshake on our side when other people are preaching disunity.
Hamwezi kutuambia tuvunje vyama vya ukabila, tuunde chama cha kitaifa, alafu sasa ni kama tena mumlete mganga kuja kutumaliza sisi.
Wewe kama unataka kuingiana na mambo ya ufisadi, yeah? Tutapigana na wewe. You can be my brother, you can be my sister, you can be my closest political ally, you can be whatever you are, but you are an enemy of the Republic of Kenya, and we will fight with you.
And that sets the tone of the discussion tonight. The handshake, graft, and the quarrels within Jubilee and beyond as well. I want to introduce my guest to you real quick. Samson Cherargei, the Nandi Senator, is with us. Thank you for making time, even though you came a bit late. And you also have Ledama Olekina, Narok Senator. Thanks for making time as well.
Thank you very much.
So, quick question. The president has been advocating for the fight against corruption. Cherargei, and I'll start with you. In your view, have we made progress as a country in the war against corruption?
The fight against corruption is very important, and we support the president. The onus is on the investigative agencies to ensure they prosecute cases that facing graft. And today even the EACC arrested the Samburu governor. So we are making progress in the fight against corruption. We hope the investigative agencies will ensure they also bring watertight cases sorry, so that at the end of the day we can have the judiciary or the courts of law, we can have conviction, and anybody who has been found in corruption allegation to be punished, and it becomes deterrent. You know, we should now move from detection to deterrent, and also that opportunity will ensure that even corruption being fought at the county governments and the national government, so that Kenyans can get value for their services, and everything that money is allocated for goes to the development, and the country moves forward.
Okay, you say that you support the president in the war against graft, and yet you've been quoted saying that the war against graft targets a particular community. Isn't that double speak?
No. The president, it is the president and the government has outlined that, in fact, you should appreciate that President Uhuru Kenyatta and the Jubilee government have been very clear. This is the first sitting president to become openly and say he fights corruption. The issues that maybe, and let me, where the problem is that the investigative agencies, be it the DPP, the EACC, the other DCI, are public institutions. Every Kenyan has a right in a democratic country to sometimes question or sometimes express their concerns, just the way even judgments of court sometimes are criticized.
So what are your concerns right now?
No, of course, the fight, that is our main concerns was that the fight against corruption should be done systematic. We should have watertight cases. We should have convictions. Those are just so that we don't lose the focus.
You don't think it targets any community anymore? Are you withdrawing that statement?
But when you ask me, of course, the end of this game has not yet come. The 90 minutes is not yet over. So when it will be over, then we will be able to judge based on the factual that is in court. As a lawyer, I will tell you this.
Yes.
Any case that will go to court and it is watertight, it has facts.
You've been quoted as saying that it targets the DP. So are you withdrawing that statement?
No, I have not been quoted. We have been just expressing concerns that the fight against corruption should be done in good faith.
It's not, now you're saying it's not targeting any community, it's not even targeting the...
No, as at now, the fight against corruption, we are waiting for, now it was detection, deterrent, investigation.
Which contradicts your earlier statement.
So we are trying in any way, it's not contradicting. It is just a way where you are questioning a public institution. The way even media sometimes says parliament has gone into excess or some of these things. And that is why we are saying the fight against the president and the deputy and the Jubilee government has been committed.
We have your soundbite saying that we'll play it in just a bit, then you tell me what you're saying right now.
And you play it.
Are we heading in the right direction?
Trevor, first of all, I'm quite happy to see that my colleague is finally seeing the light and he's changing goalpost. I think in your question is that ultimately we do have to make, we do have to really move forward and fight this monster called corruption. And I think if we allow the institutions which have been mandated by the Constitution to be able to fight corruption, then we will have no choice but win. But the moment we start crying fall, then of course we are not going to win. The president has been very consistent, and I support him for that. And what we need now is to have every Kenyan following the president's move and supporting the president with one tone. And I'm happy today that my dear colleague here is finally seeing the light. Because unless we fight this monster called corruption, there's no way we are going to be able to progress as a nation.
But the fight against corruption was started by government, and as much as I know, I'm in government. So they are just joining us to slay the dragon. Because we agree this needs joint effort, because Kenyans are losing a lot of money through corruption. And therefore we support genuine, good faith, watertight cases. In fact, the challenge to investigative agencies, Trevor, is that they should speak less. They should be heard in silence. Because their work is to investigate and prosecute. We should not even be listening, be not seeing them on TVs, or where you are seeing today maybe a leading daily nation could say billions of shillings has been lost. But finally, when somebody is charged with a very small money, like 1 million, like NYS case, that's an example, where it was flashed in the headlines that billions have been lost. But when it came to the real prosecution of case, it comes to some, of course, to Kenyans, that's a lot of money, but it comes to the less money that was shown in the leading dailies. So that is why we are saying the investigative agencies that the creation of constitution should always work in silence. Let their actions be heard. So that we are hearing, if today, for example, if the governor is facing allegations, the Samburu County Governor, and I'm happy Senator Ledama Olekina were in Samburu over the weekend, now we want such cases so that the investigative agencies are heard through actions, not through words.
Senator Ledama, where do you stand at this point as the opposition? You've just said that the president deserves support, and then we've seen that the opposition and the president, the ruling party are almost reading from the same script. In fact, one typical example was the Huduma number registration today. We saw some opposition leaders as well spearheading that fight. Where do you stand at this point, and who checks government now? Let
me put it very clear and categorical. I have not supported the Huduma number, and I will not support it, because the process in which the Huduma number was introduced was an illegality.
Bring this back to the opposition checking the government.
And this is where we stand, where I stand as a member of the opposition. Because consistency is key. And if you're not consistent, then you're just a nobody. The truth of the matter is, the intention could be good, but the process towards achieving that intention is flawed. You know, what happened was that there was an omnibus law which was amended, and the Registration of Persons Act, I think Section 9 was amended, and then it was sent to the president to be a certain into law without being sent to the Senate. So with that point, I feel like we as the legislators have failed. And as where I sit, I have raised concern about that. And in fact, because I know that matter is before the court of law, that issue has got to be returned back.
And yet your leadership supports it.
Our leadership does support. It is not, I support my leader 100%, but the best thing for me to do is to be honest to Kenyans. That where I don't agree with my party leader, I will say I do not agree. Where I agree with my party leader, I will support. In this, based on principle, I don't think it is the right thing. I know the president has made a case. He has made a case of the number of police officers who are ghost workers, who are identified, and who will be able to be removed. I think it's a brilliant thing. But can we follow the law? Can we follow the due process of the law? We're talking about fighting corruption. There's so much being hidden out there. Who knows? I watched the Al Jazeera recently, saying that the reason why this Huduma number is being introduced is because of a Huduma card. There's an issue of MasterCard. We know these are business transactions. We know Africa today is where everyone wants to go for data.
So where does this leave Kenyans when opposition cannot check government?
No. The opposition is taking government. The fact that I support the president in the fight against corruption does not negate the fact that I will tell the president when he's wrong. When I said we have failed as a nation, I mean that because of what is happening. People are dying. When food is supposed to be given to the poor, they are not being given. Okay. When what is supposed to be able to mitigate these natural disasters is not being taken into consideration, we've got to tell the government they are wrong. Okay. And the only way we can be able to go anywhere as a nation is when we are bold enough to tell them, you are wrong. You messed up here and you need to make it right.
I think, of course, when you look at Article 31 of the Constitution, the right of the privacy and the miscellaneous amendment that came, unfortunately, when you look at advisory opinion number 3, I think so, of 2013, on the role of both Parliament, that is the National Assembly and the Senate, it seems there are people who still have hangovers of yesteryears, where they decide unilaterally that the National Assembly should just go through the omnibus of miscellaneous amendment, contrary to advisory opinion of the Supreme Court. Secondly, there are so many concerns that as Senate we did express on the issue of Article 31 on the right to privacy. And I'm happy there is a court ruling already that has said DNA should not be extracted, because we know government ownership of data. Sometimes the government is always accused for being the always misusing that data, because as we talk, we don't have a data protection law. As
so
a Senate, we
also disagree with the
there are some concerns. Okay. I know it is the right time because of issues of terrorism, issues of, for example, Wazee in the villages nowadays are suffering because they can't access their money. The government services are agreed, the NHIF, the licensing, carrying all those documents is a problem. But there are few concerns that I wish this exercise should address, so that we don't run a fall under Article 31 on the right to privacy, and we ensure if the process is involved through both the National Assembly and the Senate, and even other procedures that should be followed. But I agree, it's a good issue that every Kenyan should embrace. But there are a few concerns that the government should address.
Let's bring this discussion back. Is there a rift within Jubilee? What is the quarrel within Jubilee?
As much as I know, there is no rift in Jubilee. Because why I say so? No, let me tell you. You know, that is, you are just asking about the handshake. By the way, the president, as I know, he was genuine about the handshake. The president, there was a handshake in 2002. There was a handshake in 2013, which is genuine. The president has been genuine. The reason the president wanted handshake, he wanted a stable environment. He wanted to build on this legacy. He wanted to fulfill the vision of Jubilee. He wanted to have a calm where, when now my brother, at least my brother knows the role of opposition. I think he should teach his party leader. But on the other side, you'll have your right of reply. But on the other side, our brothers, one of them is the ODM leader, came with a different intention. The president was genuine with a handshake, but my brothers from NASA decided to come with their own agenda, because as we were doing handshake,
and yet you are not part of the team.
As a handshake, when handshake came in, they started saying, we support President Uhuru Kenyatta, but we don't support William Ruto. Yet the presidency is a package, the government is one. Then what is the genuine of that handshake?
That is
because
Senator,
let me say, Trevor, no, but the Secretary General of ODM has said, he was in a rally here in Nairobi over the weekend. They are saying even the impeachment motion by Senator James Orenga, our Senate Minority Leader, it shows that these people, when they came in, they have never been genuine in it, and they have said their main aim. And I think Senator James Orengo might have preempted their strategy, was to ensure that they stop William Ruto by all means. It means their agenda of handshake has been to destroy other bridges and build walls, but not to assist President Uhuru Kenyatta. Finally, before Ladama comes in, as I conclude on that thought, the reason NASA is so hell-bent in frustrating the government is that the government, they hope and pray that the government will fail in fulfilling the Big Four agenda, say that the president will not have a legacy, and our presidential candidate of 2022 does not have a springboard. They will come back and say, Jubilee did not do anything, so they don't deserve again to live.
Is that true, Rila?
Absolutely not. I'm surprised that my brother is speaking the way he's speaking, because he knows very well that the handshake brought a lot of sanity into this country. It brought calmness, and it brought peace into this country and progress. We got into the handshake knowing exactly what we are doing. We care about this nation. But for him to argue that we came in to destroy Jubilee, we will not destroy Jubilee. Jubilee will destroy itself. Jubilee is fighting. They came in, URP, TNA, they joined in together. Right now, just last week, the people who are supporting William Ruto were dressed in yellow, going back to URP, saying we've got options. So the fact that Jubilee as a government is going to fail in fulfilling the Big Four agenda it's because of their behavior, over borrowing. It's coming up with budgets which they can never be able to implement. They have supplementary budgets every year. So the thing is, it is the way they run, their mismanagement,
which is
that is what will fail Jubilee. So now, because we are fighting the war against corruption, we are saying we do not want a corrupt nation. We want to change. Cherargei, before we walked in here, he was coming in here saying, I support this side. But then he just got a phone call that changed everything. So when I was looking at him, I was wondering, is this the Cherargei who I've been watching in the news on a daily basis? Let me finish. You will reply. The other thing, I can never teach Raila anything. I learn a lot from Raila. So by you telling me to go and teach Raila
the role of opposition,
yes. If it is not Raila, this country will not be where it is today.
Are you against the DP?
Okay? I am absolutely not against the DP. But I can tell you something, and I'm happy you've asked me that question. You see, in this country, we are entertained on a daily basis on issues corruption. And the media has not been far from this all war on corruption. But I find it very interesting that in all those years, with all the information which is obtained locally here, no one has got the balls to one day ask the DP directly in his face, are you corrupt?
He's been asked that question and he has said no. If you have any evidence, take it to the DCI.
When he said no and take the evidence to the DCI, then I think the best thing we can do right now is for whoever has all that evidence to take it to the DCI.
Do you have it?
Let me tell you.
So you can't authoritatively
let me tell you.
Corrupt.
Did I ever say that the DP is corrupt?
You just said that nobody has asked him.
Nobody has asked him.
So?
I watch the BBC. And when the BBC interviewed the DP gave the BBC and gave even you in these media houses, gave you more information about how he acquired the Westgate or Weston Hotel. And when you look at that, those are characteristics of corruption. So in essence, let us ask ourselves, we have to be very honest. And the problem in this country is that we're never candid enough to be able to face the problems that we have. All of us are so corrupt to a point whereby you cannot be able to separate what is the truth and what is the false.
And you're in leadership as well, and you haven't done anything about this.
Let me tell you, I have done... No, you've asked a question, I must respond to that. You said, I'm in leadership and I've not done anything about it.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. When I stood firmly and I fought and I investigated the matters to do with the Ruaraka land report, it was trashed because of interest. And that is because it was touching on very, very senior people in this country that are untouchable. Okay? So as a person, as a leader, I have committed my time and I've invested my time, sleepless night, to ensure that we point out where we think is rotten.
Okay, Cherargei, is URP splitting?
It is interesting, my brother. Let me tell you, the country needs to celebrate President Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto because they decided to collapse tribal political parties and build a national party that is called Jubilee. ODM and other parties used to exist in some outfield called NASA.
Yeah.
That, and you can't lie. The ODM itself, the grandmaster, is a master of deceit and deception.
No, that's
his
not
signature
true.
is violence.
No.
Anytime, and a confusion,
Absolutely
we know,
not.
when he went
What
to Moi, for example, in 1997, when he joined Moi through NDP, by 2002, he was destroying Kano.
How old were you?
He was in, it's not about age. Wisdom does not come with age, my friend. That's what I want to, let them allow me right to, so you'll reply. He destroyed Kibaki's government in 2005. This is a person who has a track record of destruction, deceit, and signature of violence. And we cannot fear because we have backing. You remember even in the contested 2007-2008 elections, he was the main presidential candidate. Anytime he goes, there is destruction and confusion. And that is why tumeona yeye na 18. We have told him, you can't destroy Jubilee. Tumesha kuona kwa 18. And that is why the people like him, their intention. And if, by the way, Trevor, as I conclude...
Have you raised this with the president himself?
No, there is no rift in Jubilee. Jubilees. And let me tell you, you know, Raila is so sharp. He has decided to pick a few disgruntled elements within Jubilee and use to fight the enemies within. Like the people you have been seeing, like the likes of Maina Commander and the rest. Those are people that are working on the behest. You saw them in Murang'a, as I conclude. The people who work with this famous outfit, I don't know the name, with the ODM legislators were people who are working on the behest and the direction of the ODM leader, who is a master of deceit, deception and confusion. But you are telling him to share 118.
Let me tell you something. You know, Cheralgei, let me remind you something. Kenyans, you might think Kenyans are gullible and they will just take in brilliant. Whatever you take. But Kenyans don't forget. It is quite evident there that Jubilee is divided into two camps. There is Kiweleweke, there is Team Tangatanga.
How do you know and you are not in Jubilee?
If Jubilee was united as one entity, you would be speaking from the same script. But coming in here and trying to bring in tension in the country, saying our son, let me tell you, the guilty ones are always afraid. The best thing you can be able to do now is to follow suit. We in NASA, and let me tell you if you didn't know this, NASA is not made up of 2 tribes. NASA is made up of 45 different ethnic groups in this country. That is what makes
But it is a loose outfit.
Okay, let me finish.
No, it should be honest to Kenyans.
Let me finish.
Because there are shortage of food.
No. Let me tell you. The best thing I can tell you now is from the way you are speaking today, apart from your attack on Raila, who, by the way, you would not be sitting in this chair if it was not Raila. Raila fought for this country, for the freedom, for you to be able to talk. So my advice to you, my dear brother, as a chair of legal in the Senate, the best thing you should be doing is you should be following the footsteps of the president. When the president say, go right, you go right. Go left, you go left. But not today speak and say, Kitaeleweka, tomorrow you say, Tanga. You know, be consistent.
All right.
You are not consistent at all.
Gentlemen, as we wrap up now, and you've talked about Kuonewa to 18, you do know Kenyans are starving as we speak. The Building Bridges Initiative had 7 pointers, including that's ethnic antagonism, corruption, divisive politics. At what point do you politicians now start talking about issues affecting Kenyans?
No, I agree.
But politics.
No, I agree that it is sad that, you know, to die out of starving is very painful. Because somebody, to die through starving takes a lot of process. Number 2, when you look at the disaster management, and I think there is a bill in Senate that we are working on, is that the first line of defense is 2%. For example, if Governor Nanok is getting 12 billion, he has 600 million, 2% of 12 billion, 600 million at his disposal to address the issue of starvation in Turkana before the national government comes in. I know the national government has contingency. And we have called these people, the parliament has done its work, we have summoned relevant agencies, we have even discussed through the council, we have urged the council of governors, we were in them with the State House on Friday, so where they were discussing county review mechanism.
On this one,
it is twofold. One is the county governments are the first lines of defense because 2% he knows he sits in PSC is allocated to disaster management.
Okay.
And the national government should come in terms of coordination and assisting the county government.
Both tiers of government.
And of course, you saw a few weeks ago the deputy president did chair an interministerial and interagency of trying to address. I know it's so painful and it's so sad, and I think this one should be happening in 21st century. We should be looking away, and I hope finally, in North Rift, we have food, we have maize in excess. Even if you go to Eldoret up to today, that is now the challenge should be, how do we, in fact our proposal has been even to devolve NCPB, National Cereals and Produce Board, to have a better connecting, because Eldoret has excess maize, but Turkana does not have.
Right. Senator,
the thing
is it about time we stopped politicking and started handling the issues that are affecting Kenyans?
I couldn't agree with you anymore. I can tell you this, we as a country have failed. We have failed young Kenyans, and history will judge us. The national government has failed. All this level of corruption, which mostly is from the level, national government, is trickling down into the county governments. The best thing we can do as a nation is, first of all, is to have discipline. Okay. Number 2, we must also be realistic and live within our means. What we are trying to do now, even borrowing 380 billion shillings to build a standard gauge railway, which we could build it cheaper, is really losing our focus. We need to be able to go in. When you heard him say when he came into this country, I was expecting the president to go out there and campaign and fight so hard for Kenyan farmers to be able to benefit. But now, all the policies which are coming up, the decisions which are being made, will ensure that farmers continue to suffer. There's no fertilizer in this country. Okay? We are not hearing of good government policies that can be able to ensure that the farmers benefit. Maize. Every single year, today we are fighting. Why can't we then go to Kitale, mop up all what is locally produced and feed the other part of the country? So you asked the question, what are we doing as politicians? It's about time that people respect the Senate. What the Senate is going to do this year, we are going to put our foot down on the issues of the division of revenue bill because we want more money to go into county governments. We cannot just be there to be a rubber stamp. When we considered the budget policy statement, we recommended about 394 billion shillings to be sent to the county governments. Let me finish. The last one is on the issue of the equalization fund. We have fought hard for it to trickle down into the wards, the small villages that are suffering. If all of us join that bandwagon, then of course we are now going to be able to make some progress.
All right, gentlemen, we have to leave it there, but Senator Cherargei, I have to warn you that in this show we do not name calling. There's no name calling on any person directly.
Or changing,
the citizen does not agree.
Or changing goals.
Those are my personal views.
Even though they're your personal views, we do not allow that in this show. All right.
What about changing goalposts? Today is
my position is.
Gentlemen, we have to leave it there for now. Samson Cherargei, that's the Nandi Senator, and Ledama Oleki, Narok Senator. We're taking a short break here on Newsnight. We'll be back with the latest in the business world in just a bit.